everybody, it's Stewart A. Swerdlow.
And Janet Swerdlow.
And this is our Expansions News podcast for Easter week of April 2014. And so I'll just get right into it. And again, I've warned all of you for a long period of time about what's going on in the Pacific Rim. And just this week alone, there were major earthquakes in Mexico, Chile, and Papua New Guinea. In fact, the one in Papua New Guinea was so large that they issued a tsunami warning for Papua New Guinea and the Solomon Islands in the South Pacific. And the Pacific Rim, the whole plate is grinding and twisting, and the moderate to smaller quakes that you have seen so far in California are just little babies compared to what will be coming very soon. And even be concerned, I would, in the Pacific Northwest from I'll go as far south as San Francisco all the way up to Vancouver and beyond. In addition to that, those quakes, or the subduction zone in the western United States, is causing a lot of pressure on the internal continental plate, and there have been many large quakes, swarms of quakes in Oklahoma, Idaho, and even in Montana. And I also noticed this morning that the volcanoes on the main island of Hawaii are also starting to quake pretty much every few hours, and the quakes are getting a little bigger and bigger and bigger. So Hawaii probably will have some kind of volcanic eruption sometime soon. And of course, even some conventional scientists are warning that something is going on in Yellowstone. Since we're talking about geological areas.
Excuse me. I was going to sneeze.
I thought I was just exciting you.
Well, that too, what can I say?
Even though we're talking about geological areas, weather is related to this. And you know, in the western United States, there has been a huge drought for, I guess, a couple of years already. And because of that, the lakes and streams and rivers have gone down significantly, even to their lowest levels that they can remember. And because of that, they are finding the remains of many missing people who have been missing 30, 40 years, finding trucks, cars in the bottom, or they're sticking out of the water now, especially in Texas, Iowa, and South Dakota. I just read today about a woman's body that was found in a lake in Texas that she's been missing since 1979. And in South Dakota, they just recently found two girls' bodies, 17-year-olds that have been missing since 1971, and on and on and on. So I think all of these bodies that are being found right before Easter, resurrection, some kind of significance going on there. Speaking of resurrection and religion, and I was very surprised to see this on the news, that they had found a Bible in Turkey, which is over 1,500 years old. And guess what? It's a concern to the Vatican, you think? It's called the Gospel of Barnabas, and Barnabas was a disciple of Christ, and actually traveled with Paul, the Apostle Paul. And according to this document, which is written in Aramaic, which was the language of Christ at the time, according to this document, it has an image or description of Jesus Christ that matches actually to what Islam says he was. And in fact, the religious authorities in Tehran, in Iran, said that the text proves that Jesus was not crucified, was not the Son of God, but simply a prophet, and also called Paul an impostor. Now that's very significant, because you might remember, and I don't remember if this is one of my books or not, you might remember, I had come across information also when we were in Turkey a few years ago, that the Apostle Paul was actually an agent for the Roman Empire.
I remember that.
Kind of like what we would have now as intelligence service. Mm-hmm. He was part of that. And so it's interesting that they called him an impostor. The Vatican has expressed concern and asked that the books be examined by Catholic authorities. They'll probably throw ink on it and rip it up. And it is believed, not actually it's believed, the article says it's believed, but it's known that the Catholic Church at the Council of Nicaea, and I think it was in 330 AD, chose what Gospels could be part of the Bible and others that would be deleted. And as we know, they deleted the Gospel of Barnabas, the Gospel of Philip, the Gospel of Thomas, and the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. Gone. Because why? It would have undermined the whole idea of the Catholic Church.
You have to remember, when the Bible came out, it was only meant to be read by the upper class. It was not meant for the lower class to have access to the Bible.
That was from the Holy Roman Empire. But previous to that, it was for everyone. So it's the Catholic Church that took that away from the public. And I believe you're going to have some information about the Catholic Church.
And I have quite a bit of information about that today.
Alert the news services. Now, here's something from near your homeland in the Northwest, in Portland, Oregon. Guess what? The Portland, Oregon water supply had to be flushed after a teenager urinated in the reservoir. Now, they decided that they saw this teenager, a group of teenagers on a video, surveillance video, come to the Mount Tabor Reservoir number 5, and the cameras caught them urinating into the reservoir, and the teens were caught, and 50 million gallons of reservoir water had to be tested. Well, they must have peed a lot. Sometimes I feel like I pee 50 million gallons sometimes. But you know, they had to dump 38 million gallons of drinking water. Now, people, let's look at this thing. It's a reservoir. It's out in the open. Birds poop in it. Animals poop in it. Things blow in it. Is a kid urinating in it going to make a difference? No,
that is strange. Something else obviously was going on here.
Yeah. Believe me, if urine was the only thing they had to worry about in drinking water, that would not be a problem. Yeah.
Totally a cover-up story for something.
Something else is going on there. One kid peeing in an open reservoir where all the animals and birds and insects go in there.
And what'd you tell me? Would you just say 50 million gallons of
water?
water?
They had a test, and they dumped 38 million.
No.
What? Seriously.
That's obviously a cover story and just too odd.
Yeah. Unless, like I said, unless those kids like really peed like an ocean.
Maybe they were giant kids.
Maybe they were alien kids. Maybe. That could be. They must have been alien. Maybe Bigfoot.
Maybe that.
That's in Oregon.
That could be.
Yeah. Well, that was near where you used to live, near there. Speaking of aliens, NASA has discovered an Earth-sized planet that may sustain life.
They keep telling us this.
I wonder if this planet can sustain life. I wonder if there's aliens out there. And they go, look at that little blue planet there. I wonder if it has life. Nah, it looks too stupid.
Just go on by.
Yeah. Anyway, they found a planet in want to know the name of this solar system? It's called Kepler 186f. And it's 490 light years away from Earth. So, I'm not going to get there too soon.
But isn't it interesting? 490, there's a 13 in there.
Oh, that's true,
9
right?
Is a 13.
That's right. And according to NASA, that this discovery proves the existence of worlds that might be similar to our own, but undoubtedly shape future investigations of exoplanets. They're calling these exoplanets because they're outside of our solar system. And according to NASA, so far, they have confirmed 1,800 exoplanets so far, but of the 1,800, only 20 orbit stars within a habitable zone. But you see, here's the thing. They're thinking it can only be Earth-like existence. What if there are creatures out there that do not need the same conditions, and so maybe all 1,800 of those planets have life, but just not the same as ours. So very narrow-minded, ignorant thinking to think that only the planets that have similarity to Earth could sustain life.
I know, I used to think that when I was in elementary school, so obviously this is the company policy. They want everybody to think.
But here's the other interesting thing that they said, that this planet may prove to be, in quotes, twin Earth. Twinning programming. And here's something even more fascinating, because they said that this planet, Kepler 186f, is like a rocky world that in that sense is similar to Venus, Earth, and Mars. So that means they're lumping together Venus, Earth, and Mars as if they were alike. And that's very interesting. And here's, I think, the biggest clue to the staged alien invasion that they're planning. According to astronomers at the University of California at Berkeley, they estimate that there are tens of billions of Earth-sized, possibly habitable planets in our Milky Way galaxy. That's tens of billions just in our galaxy.
And you know, it's so interesting because when we first started reporting this type of news as far as habitable planets, there were none, remember? And they've gone from none to tens of billions.
And that's just, and then times that by the tens of billions, 100 billions of galaxies. Yeah. So people, there are a lot of creatures out there, hopefully more intelligent than what's here.
The ones that at least will be benevolent to us.
But you know what? Here's my idea.
What?
If they were really violent and aggressive, they would have destroyed us already.
They would have been here by now.
Unless maybe we're a zoo.
Maybe.
Maybe all those UFOs, they paid money and they can come look at look at those funny people.
Earth tourism.
I think so. It's possible.
Exceedingly possible.
Well, that's all I have.
That's all you have. I'll have some interesting news.
Day.
You did. But listen to me on that, the end story that you were telling about. Did you read that article where there was a new moon forming in Saturn's rings?
Oh, yeah, I don't believe that.
You don't believe that story?
No, because it doesn't just form in the rings of power. Here I am, a new moon. Where'd it come from?
Well, that was what I was wondering. Is it some alien spaceship out there?
Of course it is some kind of an object that they're afraid astronomers will see. So they say, oh, it's a new moon forming. Just like the light on Mars was a reflection from, somebody took out a coin in Oklahoma and it reflected on the surface of Mars.
Even if it was Mars that it was actually being taken from, which of course we don't know. All right, now before I begin this story, I have to ask you to say this name for me because it's a German immigrant.
Waldemar Julsrud.
Okay, in 1945 this happened. And so I'm bringing this up because this is, again, in my opinion, them changing history in front of our very eyes. Now, I've been reporting to you about this all along, about the trend that dinosaurs are younger than what we have been previously told, and that they coexisted with man. So back in 1945, say his name again, a German immigrant, and it says knowledgeable archaeologist, discovered clay figurines buried in the foot of El Toro Mountain on the outskirts of Acambaro,
Guanajuato, Mexico.
Yep, it says over 33,000 ceramic figurines were found in this find, as well as on the other side of town. It says similar artifacts found in the area are identified with the pre-classical Chupiquaro
very good.
culture
I'm
from
very proud of you.
800 BC to 200 AD. Now, of course,
that's when you were born.
It was. I'm ancient. That's why I'm so smart. Smarter than you. Anyway, so this huge collection included dinosaurs. Now, archaeologists have been telling us that they have been extinct for 65 million years, and man's knowledge of them has been limited to the past 200 years. However, if this is true, then 2,500 years ago, they should not have been making these clay figurines.
That's correct, Lucy.
That's right. So, during 45 to 46, apparently these were saying that this was an unauthorized excavation, that he doubted that these were authentic, blah, blah. However, they have since been acknowledged now that these dinosaurs are authentic, and it says they also found the figurines. And in 1954, as I'm coming up a little bit more in history now, the Mexican government sent 4 well-known archaeologists to investigate a different nearby site excavated, and 6 feet down they also found numerous examples of similar figurines and concluded that Julsrud found was authentic. However, 3 weeks later, their report declared the collection to be a fraud because of the fantastic representation of man and dinosaur together.
Let me remind you, and I don't know if this is in one of my books, it might be, that in a California cave in the Mojave, they had found embedded in the rock footprints of a dinosaur and a human foot next to each other that were done at the same time.
Well, the other thing that makes me think about is, remember when, interestingly enough, you and I together We're exploring Marble Cave in Missouri,
Yes,
remember?
we were exploring. I had the hat on with the light.
And
we were crawling, saying, help me, and I went ahead.
No, you would never do that. You're not that unkind.
Right.
But the tour guide told us about the dinosaurs that were found supposedly in a sleep-like position in the cave.
Completely intact.
Yes. And
skin and everything.
They called the Smithsonian Institute. The Smithsonian Institute came, removed whatever, and then when the owners of the property called the Smithsonian Institute to see what was going on, ask about the dinosaurs, they were told,
What dinosaurs?
So it makes me think a little bit deeper about that story that we were told.
You shouldn't think so deep.
Well, that's your job. But anyway, so apparently, according to the stories we're now hearing, dinosaurs are not as old as what we were originally told.
Well, neither am I.
No, well, I'm old. I'm ancient.
Yeah, you're an immortal vampire.
I'm an immortal, but not a vampire.
How are you? How come I have bites in my neck?
Those are things we don't discuss in public. Now, I also have some Jesus stories.
I love Jesus.
Yeah, we all love Jesus. Was the Gospel of St. Luke written by Mary? Jesus' mother recounted events recorded in a biblical text, claims the writer Dr. Adam Bradford, who says the third Gospel was originally a legal document written by Luke, a Greek physician, as a support for St. Paul, who was imprisoned for the political crime of supporting Jesus. Now, he says that the details of Jesus' childhood could only have come from Mary, and he says that the feminine words in the scripture give away the true author. Well, the Gospel of Mark has a feminine word content totaling of 116. Luke has more than double that at 247. It's very interesting. Now, the other thing is he goes on to claim he talks about the missing years of Jesus, which was always a lot of...
I explained that in the...
You did, but he also has an interesting thing which could perhaps support what you're talking about.
What's that?
He is saying that what is unknown is the interpretation of the Greek word tekton to describe the profession of Joseph, Jesus' father. Not just a lowly carpenter, but actually an architect. And if his father was an architect, that means more than a lowly carpenter. It means a master builder. So as an architect, Joseph, Joseph would have had a higher social status that would have enabled him to better educate his son.
So he sent Jesus to boarding school in India.
Possibly. He says that he studied at religious schools and became the highest ranking rabbi in Judea.
Who did?
This is what this man is claiming, according to what he claims is the correct translation of this text.
But they should be translating the Aramaic, not the Greek.
Well,
because sometimes there was no similarity in translation words from Aramaic to Greek.
And
so
that we know. Exactly. So this is what they're trying to do with this word tekton. It says the radical revision of Christian history would suggest in preaching the spurning of worldly possessions for an austere life, Jesus may have been speaking from experience. So anyway, I thought that was very interesting.
The Vatican's going to be spinning around.
Well, the Vatican's actually trying to put a lot of these things out because they're actually changing religious history now as we speak because they're aiming for the one world religion. And this YouTube video crossed my desk. It's actually on Amazing Facts YouTube channel. This was very interesting. It was a recent video from Pope Francis appealing for unity with Protestants in America.
Yeah.
And it says this has gone viral, and many people are asking, is this fulfillment of a Bible prophecy? It has to do with a special message from Pastor Doug Batchelor, who is talking about, the man's name is Tony Palmer, who is actually an Anglican, is that how you say it? Priest? Anglican priest. So he's the one who's trying to bring people together under Pope Francis and basically is talking about how Catholic means universal, which it does, and therefore they're saying everybody is a Catholic. So it's a very interesting piece. It's a little long. It's about 42 minutes, I believe. I posted this on my Facebook fan page, and then somebody else posted on there saying that there is a new prayer that the Catholics are having to say, claiming that Christ was Lucifer's son.
No.
Yes.
It's like Darth Vader and what's his face in Star Wars.
That's what it's claiming, and they're claiming it. See, I can't interpret Latin. It's in Latin.
Jesus, I am your father.
Yeah. It's written in Latin, and it has the English translation, therefore I cannot verify, but you might want to go on my Expansions fan page and take a look at both of these, the video from Amazing Facts, and somebody else posted this one under it saying that basically Pope Francis is calling Christ the son of Lucifer.
How do you like that?
That's pretty interesting. So anyway,
No wonder Mary Magdalene fled.
take a look at this stuff because it makes you start to put the pieces together and think about what's going on in your world and what you're being told.
Interesting, interesting.
Okay, I think that's it of my Jesus stories because we have to have those because it's around
Jesus
Easter.
stories.
But be sure that you do read my crucifixion programming. I didn't bring the copy
And
of the book
my
with
blog
me.
this week that I had a nice long blog about it.
Yeah, well, crucifixion programming is in your True World History book. So be sure you read that article because there's a lot of interesting things applicable to this time of year and always, of course. All right, now the next thing I want to tell you about is antibiotics. Because again, going back into history and how things are being changed, they're talking again in this article that I read that antibiotics actually help people gain weight.
Yeah.
And so, apparently, a long time ago, back in 1955, there was a crowd of people gathered to watch feed salesmen for poultry and livestock feed. Apparently, they're telling them that if you feed your poultry and livestock antibiotics, they will put on weight faster. So what they wanted to do was prove this to the farmers. So they had a contest among the feed salesmen to see who could gain the most weight in 4 months by adding antibiotic into
the farmers?
In the feed salesman's food.
Huh.
So the feed salesman proved...
Aren't they pretty chunky to begin with, those guys?
Well, I wouldn't know, but anyway, apparently the men gained weight. So this was their way of telling the farmers if they put antibiotics into the food of the animals, it would switch off, let's see, it would flip a switch, it says, helping them to pack on pounds, and the manufacturer bragged about the miraculous effects of feeding antibiotics to chicks and nursing calves.
So did they cut up the salesmen and sell their meat?
Well, no, they didn't do it. That's disgusting.
That's the next story.
But he said, this was so interesting to me, that the farmers saved millions of dollars in slop, which is a way of putting together a bunch of food and feeding it to the animals.
Well, you just got to go to McDonald's and get some slop.
These days. So anyway, and this way their animals would gain weight faster by adding the antibiotics in there. Now, let me see, I want to make sure I get this because this was really fascinating to me. Okay, he said Fleming, who is a Scottish biologist who discovered penicillin in 1954, visited the University of Minnesota. And he said, quote, I can't predict that feeding penicillin to babies will do society much good, he said. Making people larger might do more harm than good, unquote.
Okay.
However, in the 50s, a team of scientists fed a steady diet of antibiotics to school children in Guatemala.
Of course.
Of course.
Who cares about Guatemala?
Right, and also in Florida, they did the same thing.
Who cares about Florida,
well,
really?
they used mentally disabled kids, of course, who couldn't speak
Everybody
up for
in
themselves.
Florida is mentally disabled.
This was actually the mentally disabled people. And of course, they all gained weight, so then the farmers rushed for the antibiotics. Now, by 1954, Eli Lilly and Company, most people know the name of that company, as a big pharmaceutical, they created an antibiotic feed additive for farm animals as an aid to digestion. And not only that, but farmers now clamored for the antibiotic slurry, which was the leftovers from the drug companies who were making it for the people. And the farmers were feeding this antibiotic slurry leftovers from the drug companies also to their animals.
I see.
And because the animals now have all this antibiotics in their systems, it allowed for the farmers to keep their animals indoors, which led to more of the factory farming rather than the outdoors farming.
Because the animals couldn't fit out the door.
Well, because they were fat, they put on weight quickly. They had, with the antibiotics in, they could resist filthy conditions. And now, in the meantime, of course, the article concludes with they have affected the humanity because by ingesting the animals with this in them, we've ingested that in our systems. That has also affected our size and shape and making us put on more weight.
Oh my.
Anyway, a fascinating article. So I know it's a little lengthy, but I wanted to be sure and get that one in. All right, now we'll go on to something that I'm sure will fascinate you.
Okay.
Okay, this is the ones you like to talk about. Did you know that in Munich, Germany, that the city has legalized public nudity and created 6 designated urban naked zones?
Ooh, I'm going to move there.
That's what I thought, where anyone can strip down to their birthday suit and it says channel their inner nudist.
Ooh.
So that's Germany, which to me I always think of Germans as being real prim and proper. And
Are you serious? Prim and proper, they burn people.
well,
They used to, they had concentration camps. That's not
well, that's true.
prim and
Sometimes
proper.
then they stripped everybody naked before
Yeah,
they did
but
that.
you know what? A lot of them, you don't want to see them naked.
Yeah. Well,
No.
you don't want to see most people naked,
Too
to be
many
honest.
schnitzels and beer and
Yeah.
sausages. No.
Yeah. But anyway, I thought that was
Did you
interesting.
Picture Angela Merkel naked and walking around Munich.
No, that would give me nightmares.
Oh my God, you go blind.
I would go blind. All right, now we have also that doctors, I kind of report on this a little bit, but they're talking again about it, that doctors have successfully implanted laboratory-grown vaginas
Ooh.
into 4 teenage girls suffering from rare birth defects, creating new organs with a feel and function comparable to that of a natural vagina.
Aha.
They said that they used the patient's own cells, used them to create new tissue that was then grafted back into the body. And this is actually more common than people realize. I have an aunt who actually was born without a vagina, great aunt actually, and your mother, from
She
your
had no birth
story,
canal.
that's right, in the Montauk Alien Connection, the story was told of how did she even get pregnant, because when you were trying to come out, there was no birth canal, and they had to have a plastic surgeon come in and build one so you could come out into the world.
But there, you know, there's a lot of people that are born without brains too.
Yeah, well, we
They're-
won't tell them about your specific
They're
issue.
they're in public office.
It's a medical condition that we should talk about publicly and share your personal stuff.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, then we also have Wu-Tan
Who? Wu-Tang Clan.
Clan, associated rapper. Now, this one I can't fathom. This one, he cut off his penis, jumped off a building in a suicide attempt.
Okay, I think there were drugs involved with that.
They're claiming
No, nobody just decides, I think I cut my penis off and jump off a building.
But how do we know he cut off his own penis, and maybe somebody did that and pushed him off? Because the interesting thing was when he landed, he got up and ran around.
So do chickens when you cut their head
That's
off.
what it made me think about. So they said that he's still alive, last I heard.
Why would he want to be without a penis?
Well, all I'm telling you is
Did they
that
sew it back on? Well, they could
don't
grow
know.
one now. for
Well,
him.
they could probably grow one now.
But what if they make a mistake and put vaginal cells in there?
Well, then he's going to have both. I mean, these days that might be popular if he has both. And you know, the other...
I could say something, but I won't.
You're not going to say that. The other interesting thing I was going to tell you about, did you know that Miley Cyrus had a breakdown on stage?
How could you tell?
Well, I know, but point being is, to me it's programming that's like breaking down. I mean, she's doing all these really outrageous things, trying to bring these in and imprint the young people. She collapsed on stage, and now they're saying she had a reaction to an antibiotic she was taking. And that's what made her collapse, and now she's canceling concerts. I think her programming is just...
I think it's her, that she really was upset that her dog died.
Well, they're saying all kinds of things about it. But how can you behave like that and do the things she's doing without some kind of inner ramification? I mean, you just can't. So anyway, I just thought that was interesting. All right, then, now here, this is one, which again, you're going to be interested in this one. This has to do about eating sugar. It's saying that people who have low blood sugar have what they call hangry attacks. Hungry plus angry is now hangry.
Oh, that's what I have.
So what they said, now they did a research on this. So guess what they did in order to create this research?
They starved people and made them angry for sugar.
Kind of. They took 107 married couples, they put them together, and they wanted to find out what happened with low blood sugar levels. So what they did was they measured their glucose before they went to bed. Now this is what's interesting about this particular study, is they gave each one of them a voodoo doll representing his or her spouse. And then before you went to bed, you measured your blood sugar, and then depending on how angry you were, you stuck pins in the voodoo doll representing your spouse.
Wish I had that years ago.
But the point being, to me, is okay, how can we get people to legitimately put pins in a voodoo doll? To me, it had nothing to do with the sugar study. It has to do with people putting pins in voodoo dolls.
I hope none of them were Scorpios.
I thought that was fascinating for that particular reason. And my last story
Yay!
is about Russia.
Oh, my homeland.
Your homeland. And I kind of had talked about this before, but this is, again, bringing it back, so I want to bring this back to your attention, is that they're now saying that Russia's aerospace program plans to establish a permanent base on the moon.
Well, duh.
And by doing that, they're going to claim ownership because they're the only, this is what they're claiming, and this is interesting, the only human occupants. Why would they even put that in the story? They don't say the only...
Who said that?
This was in the news. You have to read, go to the
No,
link.
but who said that they were the only human occupants? The Russians said?
Yes, or whatever the article, because it doesn't say the only occupants. It specifically says the only human occupants. And of course, there's a lot of commentary if they can't build good things in Sochi, how do you say that? Sochi. Then how can they build on the moon? So it was kind of like a ha-ha thing. But the interesting thing is they would be the only human occupants, and therefore they would own the moon.
Very interesting. Well, they own the North Pole too, because they put all those markers under the Arctic Sea saying they owned it.
Yeah, well, a lot of things go on in Russia, as we well know. So those are my stories.
But I forgot one story.
What story?
Because it wasn't printed out by someone.
Was it as good as my story?
Well, because it was just actually on today. It said that here we are the third week of April, and the Great Lakes are still 37% frozen, which is unheard of. And so they said, well, the good news is that the water will be so cold this summer that it will prevent severe weather, the tornadoes. So that's a good thing. However, it'll be a cold summer, and it will, they said, affect the weather for years to come. Now, I don't know how that will work, but that's what they said.
Well, they're preparing you for a colder ice age.
It's fine with me.
As a result of the global warming. Again, I don't know how it all translates in the way that they play their stories out, but that's what they're doing.
Well, I'm okay with a cold summer.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I think we had a lot of interesting things this week, especially mine.
Yeah. Well, yeah, right. Always you. It's all about you.
Well, you were the pretty one, but my stories were the best.
As long as you recognize that.
I do. Okay, so then we want to tell them about our upcoming events. It's probably too late for them to come to our spring.
Well, till they see this.
Yeah.
Probably not.
Yeah, we have 2 openings actually left, but if you haven't signed up by the time you see this, it's highly likely it's gone.
Right.
In the spring one. Then, of course, you're on your way to Japan to see for yourself about Fukushima and radiation, all kinds of interesting things. You're going to be visiting the tomb of Jesus's grandson. So that should be fascinating. Then you will be in New York City the first part of June, and you will be doing a lecture and personal consultations. That schedule is already filling up.
Yeah,
and
I heard.
Watch the website because we're going to be posting a seminar here in August in St. Joseph, which will be fascinating, and we'll have to check that one out. And then, of course, we're going to be announcing our October seminar.
I can't think that far ahead.
I know, but I have to. I have to do the logistics.
The world could end before that. No.
Yes, but think how smart we will be because we will have all this information under our belt. We might be living in that off-planet world you talked about, if this world.
Oh, Kepler 186F.
Yeah, we might be living there, so we won't
Sounds like an address. Yes, I live at Kepler 186, apartment F.
So we won't have to be concerned if this world ends, will we? So lots of people's worlds are ending. It's been a very, very rough winter for most people, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. So please, please, on my blog, we are talking about reversing hopelessness. It's a great blog. So join us there and get your membership. And next month, I'm going to give you just a little hint. We are going to be talking on my blog about dissolving blocks, barriers, and restrictions. So if you've done this month's blog, you're going to be extremely well prepared for next because it's like an online course. It's amazing the work we do over there.
I have stuff that needs to be dissolved.
Yes, and I will help you with that, I promise.
I'll show you where it is later.
All right. Anything else?
That's it. No, I think that's about it.
All right, True World History. Be sure you have your copy because you're going to want to know that information so you can make sense of your world that you live in.
Yeah, let's make sense of something. Well, until next time, it's Stewart A. Swerdlow.
And Janet Diane Moria Swerdlow.
For expansions.com, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.